Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
And today we are continuing. It is our fourth entry into the time travel draft saga. Today we're reviewing Groundhog Day. How about that?
We are.
But before we get into Groundhog Day and any time loop shenanigans, Nick, I feel like there's a whole lot of loopage going on behind you right now, and I can't stop
Yeah.
looking at it. You're like, your background is damn near hypnotic.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize in advance to everyone who's turning in on video. The next time we do a podcast, I'm going to have a similar background to Joe, but this is just a stopgap in between. A little disco ball party that had lying around the house. I've never used this before, I promise. But here we are. It's happening.
You know what it is? Okay, so earlier I said it looks like you're in a video game. I just put together where though you're in Mario World. Like anytime like he hits like an invincibility star, like that's what's going. It's like do 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 do. That's you right now.
I feel invincible actually in this room right now, so that checks out.
Nice.
It checks out.
You feeling invincible? Oh, how bizarre.
Oh, yeah, world's not ready.
Anyway, we're talking about Groundhog Day. We're not talking about a lot of groundhogs though. Really, just one. We're talking about Phil, Puxatawny Phil, but not even really about him a whole lot. He's barely in the movie.
Yeah, not too much. But before we get too far into it, Joe, my friend of my friend, there's a summary that needs to be had, and it is 15 seconds, and it is your turn.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, whenever we review a film, we take turns on giving a 15-second summary of that film. And Joe has the honor of it being his turn today. So it was his pick in the time travel draft for time travel romance, and it is his pick it is his turn to do a 15-second summary. So, Joe, I'm going to count you down. When I say go, you begin. 3, 2, 1, go.
Phil is a really evil and bad weatherman who gets caught in a time loop in Puxatawny on Groundhog Day until he can become a better person. Phil is a really bad weatherman who gets caught in a time loop in Puxatawny on Groundhog Day. Phil is a really bad weatherman.
Well done. I see what you did. Thank you. Honestly, the first 8 seconds you were doing that, I didn't realize what you were doing because I was just watching the timer. Because 15 seconds isn't a lot of time, so I have to actually watch the timer instead of pay attention to what you're saying. And because you were looping yourself, my brain totally shut your voice off. And at the very end, I realized that you were just repeating the same shit the whole time. So well done.
Yes. I about 3 or 4 seconds into that, I got the idea, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then once I was done with whatever the first iteration was, I was like, shit, what did I say again?
I have to grade your summary, and you weren't. I mean, it's pretty damn good.
Give me points for the creativity, man.
I mean, I don't know, creativity, yeah. A minus.
A minus. I'll take it. I'll take an A minus on that one. Thank you, sir. That's I think for me, that's the best consecutive 15-second summaries I've gotten. I got because what was it? What did I get an A plus on?
About Time was
About Time. Yeah, About Time. I got an A plus, and you just gave me an A minus. That's the only back-to-back A coverage I've ever gotten.
But your summary kind of leads into this whole movie because really, what you said, right, where Phil just spends a whole day in a town called Puxatawny?
Puxatawny, yeah.
Puxatawny, and lives the same day over and over again. That's the movie.
That's a movie.
That's it. And everything that happens on those days is obviously there's an iteration every day, but that's it. And as far as time travel goes, we do have things to discuss, but we could spend hours talking about what happens to him on each of the days that we get to see, right? But that's technically not what this episode is about. It's really more about the time travel of it. We'll get to some of the things that happen, of course, but this is it was, I think, from the time travel series we've done so far, this was the simplest script, I think, of all the movies so far, and story that we've reviewed so far. And also like the weakest from a information perspective when it comes to time travel or whatever you want to call it, which we'll get to because I don't know if it's time travel necessarily. Um, anyway,
I have thoughts on that too. Thoughts that I did not have until we did this exercise, and like we'll certainly get there. But to go into some background here, so this is my movie that I drafted specifically for our romantic comedy category. And I decided to get, I tried to get it like as crafty as I could with my draft picks because like this could have worked under. Sorry, this is specifically for. I said romantic comedy. This is specifically for time travel romance.
yep.
But this could have worked for time travel comedy. This could have worked for time travel classic. Caught in the Loop. Like it is the Caught in the Loop movie.
This is yeah, such a loop.
Yeah, this is the movie that started it all as far as pretty much any Caught in the Loop Hollywood film, like Happy Death Day, the freaking. Oh my god, my dog just coughed behind me and it scared the living hell out of me just now. It might have had everything to do with the fact that I put Happy Death Day into my head.
Yeah.
I'm about to be killed. But yeah, anyway, to my point, yeah, this is the movie. This is the 1993 romantic comedy, Harold Ramis film. It is beloved and satired and parodied in everything. I've seen Groundhog Day episodes in many different TV shows. I'm sure anyone who listens to this could probably name a few off the top of their heads. I've seen it in The Simpsons. It's in Rick and Morty. It's everywhere. It's just the concept, right? As far as Stuck in the Loop, like it's Groundhog Day. People reference Stuck in the Loop as, oh, you're doing a Groundhog Day, you know, like it's like it's that referenceable, you know. Yeah, that's why I knew this had to be in my picks. It was like you can't do a time travel draft movie without certain films, and this is definitely one of them. Yeah, let's get into it, Nick. Nick, when's the last time you've seen Groundhog Day?
Oh man, I probably like when I was 10 or something. Like it's been so long that I pretty much forgot the whole thing. Like I really didn't know what was going to happen, which was kind of cool to watch it from like a fresh perspective, while in the midst of a time travel draft series, because you know we're watching it in a slightly different way. Because the whole time I'm like, what's the trigger for the day starting over? Like, what's the time travel mechanism of this film? Like, how is it actually happening and why is it happening and all these things? Like, you know, asking those kind of questions rather than just kind of watching it as a film. And so that was cool to kind of watch it almost for the first time in a way because it's been so long. Yeah. How about you? When's the last time you saw it?
It's been a while for me too. I probably haven't seen it since I was a kid. There's very little I did remember about this movie. I honestly remembered this movie being more focused on comedy than it was, and I forgot how dark this movie actually gets at certain points. I also wasn't prepared for like when we hit that mark.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second here as we enter the plot. I do want to say that there is one part of this movie that I remembered vividly, and it was still just as funny watching it as an adult than when I was a kid. And it's definitely the moment when Phil is, I think it's the third or fourth day that he's experiencing the loop. It's when he's beginning to embrace the fact that there are no consequences to his actions anymore. And it's when he sees the insurance agent Ned when he walks outside, and Ned's like, Phil, he's like, Ned, and just punches him in the face immediately. Comedy gold.
So good.
Yeah, absolutely great. But yeah, anywho, jumping into this movie, we're introduced to Phil. Phil is a pretty miserable human being. He's just rude with everybody. He thinks he's better than everyone, and he gets stuck doing this very soft news gig, or at least the way he sees it, a soft news gig to go cover Punxsutawney Phil and see whether or not he can see his shadow. And that's our catalyst for the movie. He enters Punxsutawney, does the news bit, hates it. They try to get out, they get stuck in a blizzard, and then he repeats Groundhog Day all over again the next day. And as far as the rest of this plot goes, it's really interesting because this movie is a lot. It's smarter than I remembered it being. Because I honestly thought it was just a comedy that just eventually ends in a romance, right?
Right.
And I didn't think it had much more to say than that. But it really explores how a person, the layers of a person in a situation like this, and like what they'll do. And one thing that I really enjoyed about this film in the way it's told is, with the exception of when Phil is told, well, if I was caught in a loop, I would do whatever I want because that would mean no consequences. That's the only time the film ever tells you exactly like what direction we're going. After that, every segue that you see into like his mood, it occurs like non-verbally, like on the screen. Like you're just kind of watching him like segue into like a different mood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it starts with him freaked out, and then it enters into him embracing the greatness of this,
basically.
right? Yeah, and then he moves more toward like, I guess still trying to have fun with it, but from like a romantic view, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like all about him. And then he enters like this sort of apathy and then depression. And then this moment where he has like this sort of God complex, like he decides like he must be God, right? It's like, I mean, he's right too, right? The whole universe kind of revolves around him at that point. And then finally, like, I think, and maybe we can have some debate here about like why this works out for him in the end. But perhaps a value on life that he didn't have before that ultimately like a person finds very attractive in him, right? And I guess it's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast situation. Like once someone's able to like, love him for who he is, that's when the curse is broken, right?
Right.
At least that's what I got out of it. What about you? What are your initial thoughts?
He goes through this journey where eventually he learns to just embrace the most boring day, basically, right? Because at the beginning, he's like, "Oh, this is the worst day of my life. This is the worst day of my year every year," or whatever he says. Like, he hates Groundhog Day. So literally, like, as far as the film goes, this is his least favorite day of the year when he gets to go to this small town. And then he gets taken on and this is according to our friends online who have done all the research on how long this loop lasts, but it's about 34 years.
Oh, interesting. I've seen different counts on that.
What did you see?
I saw one count that indicated about 10 years. But mind you, that was on Wikipedia. Maybe that's not right.
I think the almost 34 was via Reddit, which I actually trust a little bit more than Wikipedia.
So I'll be honest with you. I actually think 34 it makes more sense. Because like part of the logic for 10 years was it takes 10 years to become like an expert at something. And he was an expert at like a lot of things, right? Like including ice sculpting.
Right.
So like, yeah, I think 34 years is a lot more believable.
Out with piano, ice sculpting, and whatever else he learned, all that stuff. But back to my original point, like, this is like his least favorite day of the year, and he gets stuck in a loop there. And I think the bigger lesson is just like you have to learn to find the beauty in the worst days too, right? And like those days can be fun and enjoyable, And the only way he could figure that out is by being stuck in the loop on the worst day ever, basically. But we go through 34 years allegedly of insane mental swings, right? Like excitement, depression, tries to kill himself 100 different ways, doesn't work, and then eventually embraces and accepts that it's just how it is, basically.
Well, there is one thing, I failed to mention this before, and it is really important. I think the turning point for him, and this is kind of like what I was talking about for like nonverbal like segues in the plot, because like after the whole like I can do whatever I want, like after that, it's almost like he stops talking to like the audience,
Right.
There's a moment where he decides the one thing that he hasn't done is help the people in this town, right? And it's that turning point with like that homeless man where the nurse tells him there was nothing you could have done. Like sometimes people are just old, and
Right.
like he doesn't accept that, right? He's like, well, no, I'm still gonna like save this guy. Like I have an infinity to try, right?
Right.
And he does, right? And throughout the movie, like a lot of for such a boring day, a lot of like really eventful things happened in this town for people.
Right.
And maybe that's kind of the point. But like there were some crazy things that happened. He saved like a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's almost like the most unbelievable part of this movie is at the end of the movie, or I guess like the final February 2nd, right? When they're at the party and like everyone comes up to him to like thank him for all the stuff that he's done. And it's like, okay, so I believe that he's done all these things, right? What I have a hard time believing is he did all these things
in one day.
Right?
Right.
Because it's not like a Hermione situation. You can't be anywhere, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, totally incredible that I mean, he's a pro. He's got it mapped out. So like, but that also plays into what's the love interest? Is it Rita? Rita falling for him in the finally falling for him for real in the very last sequence. Because like he's just an amazing guy out of nowhere. She thought he was just a grumpy weatherman, and she's seen a whole different side of him by being stuck there because of a blizzard in that second half of the day, totally, yeah, incredible transformation as far as like him deciding, and like you said, the turning point being when he started to save the people in the town and helping the people of the town.
Yeah, embracing people.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think the one that I needed to happen, just because like the dude felt so miserable, is when he befriends finally Larry the cameraman. Like right before that happened, I was like, man, I just need him to be nice to Larry. I freaking need it. I've worked with a lot of cameramen in my day, and like I try to show nothing but respect for like what they do, because like it's a tough job. They gotta lug around such heavy freaking equipment, and like it feels like it's thankless. So like I'm watching Larry take this verbal abuse. I'm like, man, that's not right. Someone's got to be nice to Larry, man. He's doing a killer job.
All it took was a coffee and a damn donut. I could do that before. I mean, unbelievable. Larry's a simple man. Just give him coffee and a donut. He's happy.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, that's all it would have taken for me too. Give me a cup of coffee and a donut. I've been like, best guy ever. Oh.
Amen. Yeah, that's it.
Amen.
We're simple. We're simple creatures.
We are simple creatures.
Hey, if you want to send Nick and Joe a coffee and a donut, just here's the address. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Nick, when he's hungry, absolute monster. Coffee and donut, purrs like a kitten.
All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. Let's talk. I mean, let's just jump into the time travel part. This is a time travel draft series. This is a time travel movie. We're talking about time travel. We don't really have to get into too many other things. I think they'll loop in, no pun intended, as we talk about the time travel. But I'm sensing there might be one more thing you want to mention before we move on.
You know me well. Yes, there's one more thing I want to mention before the time travel, and I just want to put this out here because I don't want to forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Andie MacDowell is the actress that plays Rita Hansen.
Yep.
And I just want to say I don't think she was cast very well in this movie.
Mm.
And if anyone out there is a big McDowell fan, I am so sorry. Especially if you love her in this movie, it just feels like all of her lines are so flat, and like when something like bad is happening around there, or around them, she barely reacts. She's just like, "Oh no, Phil, I think something's wrong. He's acting strange." And I'm like, is no one help? And like, I get Bill Murray's like an amazing actor. Like, I
Right.
get it. Like, and trying to maybe act next to him doesn't always look good. But like, shoot, dude. I don't know. Chris Elliott like isn't like a world famous actor, and like he's doing a fine job. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just every time she spoke, I was just like, why is no one giving her direction? Jesus.
Yeah, that was a miss for sure. But the thing is like Bill Murray just he's just so damn good that it doesn't matter, right? Like it almost didn't matter who else was in the movie because like this was a Bill Murray monologue basically. Like this is a Bill Murray movie, one man show. Like everyone else like was fine and did good. It was cool to see a couple of them. Like it was cool. It's cool that Chris Elliott's in this film. Like didn't remember that obviously because I hadn't seen it in so long.
Same.
Willie Garson, I was very surprised to see at the very beginning. He's like I think right when Phil is giving the weather at the very beginning in the studio.
Yes.
Willie Garson is the guy who talks to him after right when he gets off set. And tells him about like his new producer Rita, who he then like stares at and sees for the first time. Willie Garson is like plays Mozzie in White Collar, which is a show I love, and very sad. I didn't realize he died like 3 years ago. Found that out right doing like looking up this episode. I was like, no, like
I didn't know that either.
This like 2001. So sad. I was like, oh
that
no.
Is sad.
But I really like he's awesome in White Collar, and so it was cool to see him for a second in this film at the beginning. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you about Rita, and I think that's just a product of it being a Bill. This was a Bill Murray show, you know. I mean, just like this is the movie that's like someone if no one's ever seen a Bill Murray movie before and they don't know who Bill Murray is, it's like okay, well here's Groundhog Day. I'll see you in 2 hours. Like, now you know who Bill Murray is. This is like as good as it gets.
That does raise the question of like top Bill Murray movies. We don't have to do that right now, but no, we should address that.
We should address that at some point. Space Jam. Yeah. Anyway. And for all of you who are like, what do you mean? That's a Michael Jordan movie. No. You know, it's a Michael Jordan movie. It's a Bill Murray movie masquerading as a Michael Jordan movie, okay? It's a Bill Murray film. Space Jam is a Bill Murray movie.
Crap, what is he when he tags in at the end and like he comes up with like a strategy of like what they're gonna do. They say to him, they're like, no, that won't work because of this. And he's like, oh, I don't do that. Like what's the thing he doesn't do? I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember either.
Damn it!
This is a.
It's like the best part of Bill Murray's like appearance. Like he like creates this elaborate plan, and they're like, "That's not what this is," and he's like, "Oh well, I don't do this." Like, damn it! I wish I could remember it. That is a wonderful cameo, though. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so good. Anyway, yeah, we won't go down the Bill Murray movie rabbit hole at this time, but
at this
time, time travel.
Let's get
into time travel. I wrote down like halfway through this movie, I was like, time travel ? Or timeline hop. You know, because like it kind of goes back to our discussion about time.
Yeah.
And then you also brought up the Rick and Morty situation.
Right.
Where it's like, is he actually like starting his day over, or does everything that happens at the end of the day like maybe kill him, and then he wakes up again in a different timeline? Somehow he's timeline hopping, because like, and the reason I thought about this is because like, you know, the first couple times he resets his day, the last thing he does basically before he is take a cold shower, and he's always scared when the water gets turned on, or it's right. I think it's cold, right? Because the heater's not working.
It's too cold. Yeah,
it's too cold, and I'm like, I'm like, this guy's definitely having a heart attack every time the water hits him. So like, because I was just thinking of like the ways that the timeline would reset, and I was like, maybe he's actually just like having a heart attack and dying when he takes a cold shower, and then that like resets his day. It's really he's just like in an endless death
His
loop.
consciousness
Basically,
is just
his
hopping into
consciousness is
another
just like
version of
hopping
him
into
on that
another.
day.
And then of course, like if that is the case, we don't get an explanation. So that's probably not what's happening. But I don't know why I thought of that like during the film. I was like, this guy's like obviously not a healthy individual. He's definitely having a heart attack when this cold water hits him.
I mean, the sounds dude, we've all
It's a
been hit by
stretch.
cold water, right? Like freezing water. Like I've never reacted that way before. Like not
Right.
like that. Like it,
Right.
it did sound like it's funny you said like was it cold or hot? Because like the first time I heard him react, I thought it was
Right.
too hot.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like that's
Same.
how you react when you're being hit by hot water.
Right. Like cold water, you're like,
Right,
no
right.
sound.
You're
You don't
way
make
more
sound.
quiet about it. You're like, yeah. This is an excellent. You know what? That's a flaw in the movie. Bill Murray's clearly never been hit by hot or cold water before. Like he doesn't know what the difference is.
The water temperature at Bill Murray's house perfectly lukewarm at all times.
All times. All times. He's never known anything but must be nice.
Must be nice. Oh man.
This is what happens when the elite tries to hang
Yeah,
out
and
or
that-
imitate the swill.
Right, Jesus. Um, the other things that happens like, throughout his day, is he steps in that puddle after he sees Ned, and like, they emphasize a lot of the things that happen throughout his day within the first couple replays of it, just to kind of, overemphasize the point of the fact that he's living the same day over again. But like the ones that they really emphasize, like him stepping in a puddle or him getting in the cold shower, like things like that made me think of like, oh, are those like somehow mechanisms for why this day is restarting? And all he has to do is like not do one of those things for the day to, be
Continue.
fine.
Yeah.
And of course, like eventually, like he avoids the puddle, and we don't see him take a cold shower anymore. And he gets arrested, so he sleeps in a jail, which means he didn't take a shower. Like, so like we get those all get debunked. Those thoughts potentially all get debunked very quickly. It's like no, those are not the reasons why his day is starting over. And again, do you have an idea? Like, is there a reason? We don't get one really, except for maybe just the universe
really,
wanting
like,
a lesson.
yeah, like I mean that's so like I will say that's kind of the flaw of putting this movie in like a time travel draft and in the way
Right.
that we're analyzing time travel, right? Because like
Right.
to analyze, like we've been analyzing like the time travel mechanics and like how they work within the narrative of their own script and whether or not they make sense. Do they break their own rules? And like really, like this one is so simplistic.
Right.
That like there's really not anything to analyze, and like the movie itself doesn't really give you anything except the fact that it's happening, right? Like there's really no rhyme or reason for why it begins, because like I mean let's be honest, like this isn't the first day Phil's been an asshole. Like he's been an asshole his entire life. So like
Right.
why it starts on Groundhog Day, on this particular Groundhog Day, like it's not clear. Maybe you just talked too much shit that day. I don't know. Maybe
The only
Phil.
thing-
Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Sorry, the only thing I can think of and why it's that day specifically is because it's the first day that he gets to work with his new producer. And when he sees her for the first time in the studio, there is like a brief moment where it feels like he's like infatuated by her for a second before he goes back to being pissed off that he has to go to Groundhog Day. And then of course the very next scene is basically them arriving in the town, Puxatawny, and then going to sleep, waking up, and then Groundhog Day. And so the only thing I can think of is it's just like the universe being like, you're in love with her, you don't know it yet, but you don't deserve her now either, and it's going to take you 34 years to figure it out. And basically the universe is like, you guys can be, this is the one, but you need to grow up a lot before you can deserve her. And then for whatever reason, the universe thinks that he does deserve that after putting in 34 years of work. So he ends up repeating the same day forever, basically. And then
He learned to love himself.
he learns to figure it out. Like, that's the only thing I can think of, right? Like, but that's really the only explanation because there isn't another explanation. It's like, it has to be a universal consciousness explanation.
I will say
else.
that is something I think I actually really love about this movie is that it does kind of leave a lot to thought, to your own like speculation, right? The movie doesn't tell you like a lot about like what is happening or why it's happening. Like, for example, like what you said earlier about like people trying to determine how much time has gone by. The movie itself, like if you're looking at it, it's really ambiguous, right? Like it's been a long time, but like you have no concept of really how long he's been there. To the point of where he knows the day so well, he decides that he is God. Which I actually really love that development because, like, yeah, why wouldn't you think that? Like, you are at that point, like, you have knowledge and power over all these people.
At that moment, you are, exactly, 1,000%. He was God for 34 years on that specific day in that specific town. That's it. Like, it's hilarious. It's crazy.
Yeah. This movie, like, it's funny because, like, this is kind of what kicked off this exercise. This movie actually did make me think of Loki season 2 a lot, with Loki learning quantum mechanics for hundreds of years.
Right.
It's again another thing that could easily reference Groundhog Day in its body of work, right?
Right.
And becoming godlike.
Well, but I think that's another lesson for the film too, right? It's like, if you had all the time in the world, what would you do? What would you what would you want to learn? You know, and for him it was piano and ice sculpting, and which, I mean, granted, there were limited things in the town as well, right? Like he didn't have
he didn't have the internet,
a lot of options to like maybe learn other things. The internet wasn't really a thing yet, so.
Did he learn French?
But he learned some French. I don't know if he learned a lot of French. We know he says a couple lines of French. Like amazing stuff. Like really cool. But from a time travel perspective, very simple, no explanations. Yeah, and then and basically, them falling for each other, for real, not by him doing the day over so many times that he knew exactly what to say. Them falling for each other for real ended the loop, basically, and her staying over ended the loop.
In that regard, this is something that kept like occurring to me. Did you ever find it like a little telling about this woman's sanity, that she would like fall for him so quickly? Like, because like we get it, right? Like we understand like why he might be into her. He's had infinite time to get to know her, but like for her, it's like a few hours, and she's like head over heels in some cases.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little hard to like analyze too deeply because it's like, I don't know, if you had infinite time to be able to say the right thing, like in theory you could make it work, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah.
So like
it's Shakespeare's monkey thing, right? Like if you put a bunch of monkeys in a room with a typewriter and you gave them an infinite amount of time, eventually they'll write Shakespeare, right? Like that's basically what it was.
Right. Yeah. So I think that in that regard it's totally plausible. But
do you, as far as like his, I guess like the, because we agree like the mechanic like isn't really a mechanic, right? Like
right, there's no time travel mechanic. There's no concept of time travel. It's
right. It's almost, well, like, see, I feel mixed on saying that because like on the one hand, like,
well, but also he can't be time traveling because he's waking up in the same place he went to sleep. So if he was if he was time traveling, when he would go back in time, there would be two of him. Would there not?
I mean, it depends, right? Like, because So in the idea that you're talking about, like, he would be coming back to the same point that he was, right? So that's like one way that the mechanic of this would work, right? But I don't think that's what's happening. Like, what's happening is like the day resets, right? So it's not really like he himself is going back in time. It's more like the simulation that he's in
It just
stops
ends.
and he restarts over here,
like
right?
the world blows up and it restarts on the day before, basically.
Right, because like the perfect example is the pencil, right? That he tests, right? He breaks the pencil, puts it next to the bed. The next day, it's not where he left it, and it's fixed, right? Or it's not fixed. It's just never been broken.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say his consciousness is, right? Like, his consciousness keeps, because like he can die, right? So his body, this is actually a great point, Nick, from what you brought up. His body is not time traveling. We know that that's probably true, unless like his body is also resetting, but that doesn't seem realistic because his mind doesn't reset.
Yeah, his consciousness has to be going back to the day before, because he's killed himself gruesome ways. So you're right, his body's not time traveling. So he physically is not time traveling.
Yes. Yeah. So this is more of like a Desmond Hume from Lost situation where his consciousness is traveling back.
God damn it. This is the second time in like 3 months that Joe's brought up Lost on a podcast.
I can't wait to rewatch Lost.
Well, we're going to have to that's 3 years of our lives right there. Rewatching Lost and only talking about Lost. We will do it.
So for the record, Lost season 5's time travel is perfect. I just want to put that out there. But just to reference Lost one more time here, the way that they for spoilers for Lost, if you've never watched it before and don't want this ruined for you,
I think it's illegal to say that at this point.
If you haven't watched
Lost by now, don't listen to our podcast.
Yeah, this is a Lost fan cast. All right, get out if you don't want to be spoiled. You have 5 more seconds before I just ruin it.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, in season 5, when the island is time traveling through time and space, which is just a wild bananas concept. Before things get straightened out and the cast is just stuck in the 70s, it's randomly popping up in different, like, its best hits. Like, the best hits of the island is where it keeps going. And someone describes it as, I think it's, oh my God, it'll hit me later. Daniel Faraday, there it is. Faraday says that it's the idea of when a record is scratched and it just keeps hitting the same loop, right? Because of that scratch, like, it's just stuck there forever. So I mean, that's like what's happening to him, right? It's a broken record. Let's call it that. Right. It's a broken record mechanic, right? His mind is stuck there. He is the broken record. I think
consciousness is a broken record, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great explanation. That has to be it. It's the only thing that works based on everything else that happens in the film. It's consciousness, broken record, time travel.
Let's dub that what that is. Yeah, broken record, time travel. That's what that is.
Broken record, time travel.
That's dubbed by May the Review Be With You.
There we go. Broken record, time travel. We've coined a new time travel term. This is what this podcast is all about. I'm writing this down too because I do not want to forget this greatness that you just graced us with. Broken record, time travel.
Broken record, time travel. Because as you pointed out, like, nothing physically ever changes for him after the day resets. So it's got to be a mental thing.
100% mental.
Yeah.
It's the only explanation that works.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the timeline hopping doesn't work because he kills himself a bunch of gruesome ways, so you can't take his body.
Sometimes, right? That's not always what resets it, right? It's just anytime anytime his mind loses consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
That's it. We figured it out.
We cracked the code, man.
We cracked the code.
But as to like why it starts, I don't know. Punxsutawney Phil cursed him. I don't know.
Yeah,
dude. I will say that the hardest part of this movie for me to watch is when he jacks the truck with Phil, like Punxsutawney, like Groundhog Phil, and like he's gonna kill himself and the groundhog, and the groundhog's like the stupidest kid. I've never seen a groundhog before. That's a cute animal. And like the idea that like he's just gonna send them both careening over the edge into a fiery explosion.
That was the most ridiculous scene when the truck goes over the over the gap and just like explodes. And then what's his name? The camera guy?
Larry.
Larry. Before it explodes, he's like, "Oh, well, maybe they're okay." And then, whoa! It reminded me of at the end of Ragnarok when they're on the ship leaving Asgard when it's being destroyed, and what the hell's his name? Korg. So fucking bad.
I'm so mad. I couldn't remember that.
I didn't know Taika did that.
Yeah, it's
That's a cool thing. Yeah. Anyway, Korg. So at the end of Ragnarok, when they're on the ship, like leaving because it's being, Asgard's being destroyed, and then like there's like a big explosion or whatever, and then Korg's just like, "Well, that's not so bad. We can rebuild." And then right after he says we can rebuild, it just like completely like disintegrates. Like the whole
it just
the whole world just like annihilates. Like that exactly what it reminded me of that the Groundhog Day scene when he goes off the ravine and Larry's just like,
that was such a classic like 90s comedy moment. Like, yeah. I'm sure it's fine, and then followed by a huge explosion.
Yeah, so funny. So ridiculous.
That is the most surreal moment of the entire movie. Like that they have that reaction. Like, oh, maybe he's fine.
But like, it was really brilliant though. Like the stages of him, right? From like shock to excitement to like grief to depression, killing himself, then to, well, I'll make the most of it and learn all these other things that'll be really fun. And then, well, let me help out the people because they're actually really nice people. I've been here for so long and got to know them. I need to help them. And then finally falls in love and then gets out of the loop. Like,
yeah, and then he wants to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? You're basically God. Everyone knows you.
Yeah, everyone loves you. Yeah.
He knows everyone so well. Yeah, because the next day he wakes up and everything that had happened the day before did actually happen. And he's like the greatest guy ever. Like, so awesome. Fun film. They don't make movies like this anymore. My goodness.
You said that to me, and I was like I wonder what he means by that. And I watched it a couple days later, and I think I know what you mean after watching it now, but like, what do you mean when you say that?
Dude, like, it's 1993. You have limited resources. You have to rely on the script and the actors and actresses. And so, like, you really have to, it really just has, it takes more thought, more creativity, more simplicity. Most movies today are like, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, like, there is a balance between practical effects and CGI that needs to be had. And like Nolan does it well. Denny from Dune does it well. A lot of people don't do it well. A lot of these big studios are just too reliant on tech now. When you watch a movie like Groundhog Day from 93, and I'm in the movie the whole time, it's like really entertaining. It's fun. And like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, obviously, because of the kind of movie that it is. But like, it's just like, it's a solid film, and there's no like crazy. The craziest like thing that was like maybe a little bit overdone, like added to, was the explosion with the car we were just talking about. But that they probably actually did that with practical effects because it was 93. So like on a smaller scale, like it might not have been an actual like real size truck. It might have been like a smaller scaled version with just like, camera work. Most likely is how they did that. But it looks great.
I'm pretty sure it was.
You know what I mean? But it looks good.
Yeah.
You could tell a little bit that it's like, okay, they definitely shot this on like a different scale.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell, but like it didn't ruin it.
No,
it's like,
and that's what like you have to like look at that with like skeptical eyes, right?
Right.
And if you're not, like, it's gonna look perfectly fine.
Yeah. And so they just don't make them like that. It's like, and the other movie that comes to mind that I watched recently that I had the same thought was like something like a Rush Hour. like Rush Hour 1, Rush Hour 2, like those are just like comedies that have like fun scripts, and they don't make movies like that like a lot anymore. It's just tough,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just what I think, I guess.
So I watched the movie with that text in mind that they don't make movies like this anymore. Which, by the way, I love that you said that because like I felt like there was just such a whimsy to that thought, right? Like this was film, right?
This is cinema.
Yeah.
This is rom-com.
But I think I got what you meant. Like after I saw it, I was like, this entire movie. It's such a simple idea, and like the only way it works is if you have an actor who's able to like carry it on their back, right?
100%.
And Bill Murray was that guy, and he's the guy that can play the asshole, right, believably, and then like a lovable protagonist by the time you get to the end. I was just watching another movie the other day, Ricky Stenicki, in which Zac Efron, who I think is a wonderfully charismatic actor, is miscast in this movie because the actor that he's supposed to, or the character he's supposed to play, has like no charisma. It was a weird choice to put someone who has a ton of charisma as a character who has zero. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, thoughts on Ricky Stenicki, different cast. Right. But yeah, it was neat to have a one-man show, like you said earlier, right? Like, honestly, it could have been nobody else in this movie, and honestly, I probably would have been just as entertained. Right. It's a movie that just solely relies on the main character's performance, and it was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do scores.
Let's do scores. All right, so we grade our time travel movies a bit differently. We judge them in 3 different categories, the scores being out of 5, so a perfect score would be 15. The first category that we judge in is overall narrative. So out of 5, Nick, what do you give the overall narrative?
Overall narrative, 4.2. Fun film. Enjoyed it. Pretty simple premise and script and 4.2. Solid film.
4.2.
Holds up still, from even though it's an older movie from 93.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. I think the story is really simple, but there's a brilliance to its simplicity, right? That I think is like really well thought out. Especially like that character journey, right? I really enjoy like how believable it feels, like someone going through this and like all the different like phases that we get to observe from him. The one that we didn't talk about was like the brief moment of insanity that he seems to have. That's honestly pretty creepy. When he's trying to force a relationship with Rita.
Oh yeah.
Right? And he's just trying to say all the things that he knows works as fast as he can.
Right. Yeah.
Like that part felt really like a horror movie.
Yeah, that was awkward. That was super awkward. Yeah.
It's amazing like how often the mood of the movie changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall for the story, I really do enjoy it. Maybe the only part that's a little bit unbelievable in this very surreal story is like toward the end that like he could just do all of this in one day, right?
Right.
But I guess if you're a pro,
you're a pro.
So I think I'm gonna give it. I think I'm gonna go with a 4.6 here. I'm gonna go 4.6.
All right.
Our second category is we judge the time travel mechanic. This is going to be a weird one to judge. And judge it, Nick, judge it in any way you feel is appropriate here.
So we have decided that it's broken record time travel through consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're time travel experts, clearly.
Obviously.
This film gives no explanation for how this is happening. So this is a very low score, 2.3 for time travel. It's because there's no explanations at all. And we kind of have to make them up on our own. And I think from how we've been grading everything previously, it's about the explanations that were given within the film. And since we really don't get any here, I just, low score for me.
So I don't disagree with anything you said. I so the mechanic works for the sake of the film, right? Right. It's very simple. All that needs to happen is
Yeah.
that he goes back in time. I think as far as like mechanics work, it's a very boring time travel mechanic. And maybe I only feel that way just because like this has been done so many times since
Right.
this movie has come out, right?
Right.
That there are just so many more interesting and engaging ways to explore time travel. So maybe
Right.
it's not fair for me to feel that this is a boring time travel idea, but like it is. um, there certainly were time travel stories before this movie came out that
Yeah,
had
that's
time
fair.
travel mechanics that are way more interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm probably not going to give a very high score for this either. I am going to be higher than you. I'm just going to go right down the middle. It's a 2.5 half.
Okay.
I'm just going half. What it does well. It just happens to not be very exciting. You know?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, and finally, how did this movie do in the category it was drafted into? And just as a reminder, this movie, Groundhog Day, was drafted into the category of time travel and romance.
It fits in the category very well. The only thing it has going against it is that it's such a good stuck in a loop movie that I almost like that it makes me feel like it was misdrafted. Like you like in your time, you're stuck in the loop film was 12 Monkeys, which is also a great pick for stuck in a loop. This would have also been a great pick for stuck in a loop, and this might be the stuck in a loop of all stuck in a loop movies, and that's all I kept thinking about during it, although there is a romance involved and it does fit in that category as well. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 4.4 out of 5 for how well it fits in the category, because I was thinking about how good it could have been for a stuck in a loop film because of obvious reasons.
This is fair criteria. After all, we do have to judge it against the category that it could have worked in best. So yeah, like I said, I wanted to get creative with how I chose some of these. And this could have worked in a lot of different categories. Stuck in the Loop, obviously, is probably the one it could have worked in best. I just felt like 12 Monkeys, like that worked very well there, right?
Yeah.
I think ultimately I'm gonna go probably a lot higher here for romance because, like, I mean, like it is what it is, right? It's a romantic comedy. It's time travel. It's all there. It's all there. And me watching it again, honestly, did not change my feelings on that. So I think for the category, I'm gonna go like a 4. Honestly, I don't have a reason not to go 4.8 here. I think the only reason why I wouldn't go higher is just because like how crazy unbelievable it is at the very end that everybody is like best guy ever. Best guy ever. He's everywhere. Like this guy rules. Like
Joe, if you had 34 years to do the same day over again, I think it would be very similar.
I need to see the scene. I need to see the scene where he is running all over town like an insane person, saving, doing the mundane tasks that people love him for. I need to see that insane scene. That's the only reason that can't be a 5 for me. This is a good point for us to tally because we've both now have had 2 movies each for the 2 categories that have gone by. The first being Stuck in the Loop. As a reminder, Nick chose Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for that. I chose 12 Monkeys. Our other category that we just did, romance and time travel, which of course, About Time and Groundhog Day. Right now, with the point totals that we've got, Nick is leading the time travel draft with 49.4 points. I am trailing behind 4 points with 45.9.
It's a close
Not gonna
game.
lie, I got smoked on Groundhog Day a little harder than I thought I was going to.
Sorry.
Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban is the highest rated movie we have so far with 26.3 points out of 30.
That's crazy, actually.
Yeah. Because the other 3 didn't get above 24 points.
Yeah, the thing that helped us was that helped Harry Potter is the time travel mechanic is actually really good in
It
Harry
was a
Potter and the
great
Prisoner of
mechanic.
Azkaban.
Yeah.
Like J.K. Rowling crushed the mechanism there. Yeah, that's definitely what helped.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie's only, really, it's only the last like third of the movie where you're really talking about time travel. So that helps it too, because there's less time to break down the time travel part of
Yes.
right? Like on
Yes.
all the other movies we've reviewed besides that one, it's like a full time travel film.
It's funny, like
So like,
looking at the scores, I thought About Time was going to be the highest rated movie because I
yeah,
gave the story of that a 5.
right,
um,
right.
and it's not. It's both 12 Monkeys and About Time scored the same at 23.1 points.
Okay,
Yeah, our lowest rated movie actually right now is Groundhog Day,
that's funny.
which is shocking at 22.8 points out of 30.
Well, hey, it's a time travel series,
It
and
is.
there has to be some more information about the time travel. And if it's not in the film, it's just gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. That's how it is.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I gave the mechanic 2.5, and it was my own
Yeah, I
movie.
know. I know. You did well. You did well. Oh, man.
But yeah,
All right.
we are now entering the third round here. It is my pick for what category we do next. And just as a reminder, categories that we have left: classic time travel, comedy and time travel, superhero time travel movies, surprise time travel movies, and I, if I could redo this time travel draft, what time travel movie would I choose? That's just a fun one for the end. But yeah, it being my pick, I think it might be cool. I'm really kind of feeling the classics right now. After watching Groundhog Day, I'm feeling, let's go time travel classic next.
All right.
Yeah. And for me, that would be Back to the Future.
All right. And I believe my pick for classic was Terminator 2.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's such a good one. That'll be interesting to see which one gets higher there.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
man. I love it. All right. That's a wrap.
Yeah. So yeah, catch us next time when we're reviewing Back to the Future. But until then, may the review be with you.
Peace.
Awesome.
Nice.